Okay, if I could have everyone's attention, please, we'll move back to our next meeting agenda. I will call the meeting to order. We do not require a roll call. We have one item on our agenda, and I will ask Vice Mayor to please take over.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's agenda item is a discussion and possible action of a vote of no confidence regarding Mayor Bridget Peterson. In fairness to the process and to Mayor Peterson, I will be chairing this meeting. We will not accept public comment on this item as it is a special meeting which does not call for public input as noted in our code. Any action taken this evening will be solely a result of individual council members' feelings and experience of no confidence. The public formally expresses their vote of no confidence at the ballot box or through a referendum process. Nothing in the agenda packet outlines a suggested motion or a document highlighting specific reasoning for this, and therefore we'll begin with that as a foundation for discussion. In an effort to be transparent, I'd like to express my consistent stance of bringing new action items through a study session or discussion venue prior to asking the council to take a blind vote on the dais without adequate time to examine the facts and have the opportunity to suggest changes. In order to move through this difficult discussion with professionalism and decorum, I'd like to share some ground rules and clarifications for my fellow council members to consider. The mayor will not participate in the conversations between council members, but she does have a legal right to respond to criticism shared and will be given an opportunity to do so prior to any action taken. She will not vote on this item. We have no local precedent for council taking this action, so this is uncharted territory for us, and we need to proceed carefully. An action of no confidence has no legal standing. As we move through this agenda item, I'll serve as a facilitator to ensure everyone has a chance to speak. So please turn on your microphone and I'll call on you for you to share your comments. If you feel I have overlooked anyone, please let me know so I may correct that oversight. Sometimes it gets a little confusing and I don't want to do that. Also, as a facilitator, I may ask for clarifications of comments and intent. Please know I am doing this to ensure everyone is understood and that it is not my intention to challenge the comment, but help clarify and in some instances to point out unintended consequences. We are setting precedent tonight that quite frankly will open up all council members to this action now and into the future. We need to identify specific behavior that rises to the level of this action very clearly, as it will be the basis for any future call to action. We spent a lot of time updating our ethics handbook and code of conduct policy to provide opportunities to work out issues between council members and the public before it escalates to this level. Unfortunately, the effective date doesn't allow us to lean into that process tonight. So before we begin, I'd like to note that I'm interested in finding a long-term solution to eliminate the underlying issues that are driving us to work against one another and to publicly chastise one another, which is viewed by the outside world as a dysfunctional and retaliatory environment that is a vicious circle of drama and instability. This type of environment will have long-lasting economic impacts as businesses decide to not move here or move out because of the impression of instability of its leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not who we are or who our community expects us to be. We're on a slippery slope, and my hope is that after tonight's discussion, the council will agree with me as I recommend directing Mr. Payne and Mr. Banger to explore an opportunity to bring in a mediator to work with the entire council as a group, to have those tough discussions and conversations about expectations of behavior and to air grievances that need to be addressed. So let's begin. It's my understanding that 3 council members signed the form to place this item on the agenda. Council members Buckley, Bongiovanni, and Torgerson. Councilmember Bongiovanni, I've read in the media that you are leading this effort And if that's correct, I'd like to begin with you regarding comments and potential action being asked for tonight. As mentioned earlier, I believe it is important that we establish a clear understanding of what behavior rises to the level to warrant this action as a foundation for this discussion. So, Councilman Bongiovanni, if you'd like to begin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and fellow council members. I will be a few minutes. I usually start my discussions with a joke. There'll be no jokes tonight, as this is not a joking matter. I hope there's no drama this evening either. I hope the people of Gilbert aren't entertained, as this is not a political theater. No salacious accusations will be thrown around. There's no need to be on edge, as this isn't a reflection on the mayor as a person, but her actions we've seen and felt. There will be no he said, she said, or they said. It's simply not going to happen. We're not looking for drama. We're looking to get back to focus on what's important for the town of Gilbert. Some may think, and have put in the press, that this evening is a waste of time. But building a platform for unity and trust within our council and our community is never a waste of time. Mayor Peterson, we all know how much you love this town. That isn't and has never been in question. You've given many years of your life into the development of this town, and I thank you for that. However, what is at question is whether you love the town enough to make the changes that are needed to achieve unity and restore trust to this council and the general public. There is nothing more important than unity in restoring trust. And as our leader, you and only you are responsible for taking the first step towards that. Madam Mayor, I will be extremely disappointed tonight to hear you say, he hates me, they hate me, there's a group of citizens against me, because those are excuses. And excuses should never be part of the language of a leader. True leaders take responsibility for their actions from top to bottom. For example, Patrick, our town manager, takes responsibility for his actions and every employee in the town of Gilbert. Tonight is not a reflection of him and his leadership either. My biggest issue tonight is I can't be transparent with the people of Gilbert who elected me to this office to what I've seen, heard, and dealt with. I can't be transparent like I promised I would be, because state law and even Gilbert's own Code of Ethics, Section 3 on loyalty, dictates that I can't bring up issues that have been brought to us to this breaking point tonight. But I can't say anything. The people of Gilbert don't know. However, every council member on this dais tonight knows. My fellow council members, forget about the ethics complaints. You know the behaviors, the antics, and the people involved, and the motives of those people in the last 6 months, and especially the past 30 days. You all know the behaviors. We were elected to this office by the people of Gilbert to represent them, especially in situations like this where they don't know. But you do. You don't need investigations to know what's been happening behind the scenes. Every one of you knows. You've lived it, breathed it, heard it, and seen it. But are you willing to do anything about it? Now, I know there may be an important vote tonight, probably one of the most important votes you've ever been asked to give. For the record, if a vote of no confidence passes, you're not going to see me in the hallway high-fiving anyone. This isn't a personal or political victory for me. It's just an unfortunate situation we find ourselves in tonight, and someone had to stand up. I know the fear behind this potential vote, and I understand it. But in reality, if a vote of no confidence passes, Mayor Peterson, we can't remove you from office, nor would I want to, since you were elected by the people of Gilbert. But my hope is maybe, just maybe, this vote will open your eyes to those of us who work closely with you and how they feel about your leadership style, and will force you to take a deep look inside yourself and make the changes that are needed to unite and build trust in this council so we can get back to work. But even if I'm the only one who votes yes for this potential motion, You, as a leader, are obligated to repair our relationship. I will do my end of it. Again, fellow council members, I understand the fear. However, having any fear about this vote at all should be a statement in itself. But I get it. I could probably go around the dais, person by person, and have a good idea of what that fear may be. One of you may fear conflict. However, sometimes we need conflict to get to a healthy resolution. One of you may fear that this makes the town look bad. I urge you to ask yourself what the town will look like if a motion doesn't pass and the behaviors continue, because they will. Mayor Peterson, you may have fear having to make changes needed. However, if you choose to make those changes, I will personally support you and be in your corner throughout those changes, whatever it takes to unite us. One of you may be fearful that your vote may look retaliatory. You know it isn't. One of you may fear future ramifications if this vote passes. I ask you, what are the ramifications if it doesn't? And one of you may feel so shell-shocked lately that voting on this may be scary to begin with. The truth should never be scary. Now, I have fears. My fear is for the council members who don't vote with their conscience and let fear take over. We shouldn't vote against this out of fear. If you vote against this potential motion, I fear for you not today, but for tomorrow morning, next week, next month, when you wake up and hear that little voice in your head that says, you knew and you did nothing. You knew and you did nothing. That's a voice that will haunt you for a very long time, and I fear that for you. I also fear every time we as a council draw a mental line and say no more, then just let it sit and lie again when it's crossed, only to move it forward, only puts us further away from the people we represent. We could simply kick the can down the road and let people decide themselves, but that would be a move of indecisive leaders. They don't know, but you do. I hope this council can show unity individually on this vote in the absence of a leader who I believe currently can't create unity and trust in us as a group. So I'm going to make this simple this evening. I'm going to ask you 4 questions, and I ask that you answer them honestly and not let fear consume you. I ask that you answer them with the first answer that comes into your head. We don't need the results of any ethics investigations to answer these questions. I believe the answers would be the same 2 months ago. My questions relate to unity, trust, humility, patience, skill, and will. And here they are. In this very moment in time, this very second, does this mayor have the humility to unite and restore trust within this council? In this very moment of time, this very second, does the mayor have the patience to unite and restore trust within this council? In this very moment of time, this very second, does this mayor have the skill to unite and restore trust with this council? And most importantly, in this very moment of time, this very second, does this mayor have the will to unite and restore trust within this council? If you answered no to any of these questions, you are bound by your commitment to the people of Gilbert to support a vote of no confidence, because there will be a time when they do know. The people of Gilbert have earned the right to have a unified council. The people of Gilbert have earned the right to a council that trusts each other as a group and can be trusted individually. Tonight wasn't about ethics complaints. Investigations don't change behaviors. People who are willing to change do. If you vote against a potential motion, you are saying you support the behaviors that got us here. But I can't see that happening, simply because you know deep down, you know changes are needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Are there any other comments from the dais?
I don't have any additional comments. I agree with what Chuck has said.
Thank you, Councilmember Buckley. Any other comments? Councilman Torgerson?
I just want to thank Councilmember Bongiovi for taking on a very ugly subject, but something that Kathy had said. For 6 months, there has been no discussions, there's been no communication to try and create some sort of unity. In fact, I have had discussions with individual council members about grave concerns of trust, incredibly deep concerns of trust, verifiably good reasons for a lack of trust. And no one really wanted to have a big discussion about this. So rather than try and go beyond what an open meeting law means and violate that, I'm going to say I tried to have some discussions to get some sort of resolution to take a higher road, to stop reacting viscerally and act more intellectually upon something that I think is important. And we have lacked that team building. We have lacked a lot of things that may have changed my personal feelings on this. But again, this is, I thank Chuck for at least making this discussion happen, because it was important to have. And thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other comments?
Oops.
Councilmember Buckley.
Yeah, I would just like to make one more comment. And whatever this vote comes out tonight, I would like to see us have a meeting together, all of us, and maybe try and talk to each person to see what their concern is and how they feel about certain things that have transpired and happened. But I think that's very necessary for us to do no matter what happens here tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other comments? No? I'm just going to go down the line. Scott, anything? Because we'll be moving into the next phase.
I'll just say that it makes me uncomfortable to be asked to act right now, the spur of the moment. I've got my own issues, but I'd like to do the same thing that Councilmember Buckley's talking about, and the Vice Mayor, I think, suggested, is that we take the opportunity, as we would with any item, to discuss it amongst ourselves, and if we need to bring a mediator in, that's fine with me. But we all have some issues, I'm sure, that we need to be able to discuss with one another. And I see this as kind of a two-step process, that we need to do that. We could come back and have a further vote if necessary, but the second phase of this process is the voters of Gilbert have the right to make that choice in an upcoming election, and I believe very strongly in that process.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Kaprowski.
I agree with what Councilmember Anderson mentioned and what Councilmember Buckley mentioned with maybe having a mediated conversation. But this was agendized yesterday and didn't have any description of reasonings behind the vote of no confidence. And then Councilmember Bongiovanni, I don't think it was clear what the reasons were behind the request. So I'm still a bit unsure of
I'm sorry,
the reason.
Can you speak up a little more, please?
Sure. I'm just unsure about the reasons behind the request for this agenda item, and hopefully others will have a better idea of how to move forward, because this just appeared to us yesterday, and there was no description about the exact reasons for the vote of no confidence, and I think that's important for the transparency and appearance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. This is a very difficult conversation for everyone up here, and I personally would appreciate the opportunity to have a mediator come in and help us through this, help us work through these underlying issues that continue to embroil this community. I believe that bringing this topic forward to have a discussion has provided the mayor with feedback that that she can respond to. Councilmember Bongiovanni, I believe you've had some communication with the mayor, and we had discussed that you felt that her running of meetings had improved significantly in that decorum, and this just happened last month, so I don't know if you feel that this has been enough time to acknowledge what's happening. Perhaps there's other areas that you are addressing. So I too, I mentioned up front, I really don't like being forced to make a vote on something that we haven't outlined the specifics of what that action has been that requires a vote of no confidence. I think that that's really important. I'm not saying that after our conversations there might not be that definition, but we don't really have anything in front of us that helps us to make that determination. As I mentioned earlier, the action of no confidence has no legal standing. So it is basically a public statement that I'm assuming is meant to ask the mayor or direct the mayor to change some behavior. And I think we need to outline what that behavior is before you just say there's no confidence. And so I'm just having a hard time getting there without that clearly defined. So before we wrap up and go into whatever the next steps are, I just want to make sure everybody had an opportunity to speak. If you wanted to say any other comments, this isn't the time for a motion at this point, but just wanted to make sure that you felt that you've had your say before I allow Mayor Peterson to have her comments. Any, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Go ahead.
I spared the details out of respect for the mayor and this council, and out of state regs and our code of ethics. I wouldn't want to say anything that disparages people because I don't want another ethics complaint thrown against me. But I look at something that if we move forward, any kind of forward action is good action. Whether it's, hey, we're going to sit down with a mediator and discuss this. It's a tough situation to be in because we all know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's very difficult to verbalize this without subsequent ramifications. And I respect the town and the citizens enough to not create those ramifications. And if we have to wait for the onset of all these ethics complaints, this will be right back on the dais. And my hope, and I know the hope of the other council members, was to not make that happen, So whatever outcome of the ethics complaints were given, that changes would already been made where we would say, okay, we're not going to move the line again, but maybe we'll just watch the line. I don't believe in airing out dirty laundry, and I'll probably get arrested if I do, or another ethics complaint. But any movement is positive movement in this situation. So if this council wants to say, defer the vote today and make arrangements for mediation, I will respect that because I respect the opinions of the council members here. But I do need to see action, and I do need to see improvement. And if we need to have an executive session to get into details, I've got no problem with details. I just respect the town too much to get into details. And my hope was, you all know what I'm talking about, the behaviors I'm talking about. And my hope was that tonight we would send a message to the mayor that you need to make some changes.
Thank you, Councilmember. I believe that has been done. And I would like to take some positive action moving forward. But if we're done with our comments, then it is time for Mayor Peterson to address the comments tonight before we move to the next step. Mayor Peterson.
I am going to choose to not make a statement tonight and ask that we move forward. And I think that's how I'm going to leave it. I would just like to move forward, and forward motion is good, as Councilmember Bongiovanni said. And I think I'm a little lost as to what we're discussing this evening. So I know that you said everybody knows, but I don't feel that I do. So I think it will take us getting together in another forum.
Thank you, Mayor. So next steps, the options that we have. We can make a motion to continue this item to a specific date with detailed actions and direction to staff on what to prepare regarding the type of action or document that we could vet and vote on. You may decide to make no motion as you feel this discussion in a public forum went as was desired to bring this to light. You may make a motion for consideration, which then will require a motion and a second. Before we do that, again, I'd like to direct Mr. Payne and Mr. Banger to research a mediation service to help our entire council as a group resolve these underlying issues that are resulting in ethics complaints submitted and that were discussed this evening, not only by our residents, but our fellow council members. Expectations of behaviors and leadership styles can be resolved in this manner. By committing to this action, we can get back to the business of the town on behalf of our entire community. And if there is no opposition to that direction, we can then move on to if there was any motion that needed to be made. We can only give direction in this mediation option because it isn't actually how it's agendized, so we're not able to take a motion. However, if anybody has any concern with that direction, now would be the time to speak up.
Councilmember Buckley has expressed interest in mediation. I need to ask Councilman Torgerson, who also signed off on this with me, if that is a consideration for you.
Chuck, I'm deferring my consideration to you. What you feel is best is what you feel is best on this, and I appreciate it.
Okay. Vice Mayor, you are the queen of motions. I'm still learning, but I would like to make a motion on your first option of seeking some kind of mediation to move forward.
Okay. I'm going to look at Chris. Are we able to do that as a motion based on how this was agendized, or is direction sufficient?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, direction is sufficient on that because that wasn't a possible legal action that was agendized.
Okay.
But it's not needed. We've got the direction. We can go forward with planning a future meeting for the council.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Councilmember Bongiovanni, for your consideration. And, Councilman Anderson.
I was just going to ask, if we take this kind of action, does that mean that we can bring it back for a vote if necessary?
I'm going to look towards Mr. Payne again. I believe that that would be done under a separate agenda item, should we choose to.
Are you talking about the actual follow-up, the mediation?
No, if we wanted to bring back the,
Oh, bring back
yes.
the current thing?
No,
Yes.
no, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll stop talking so you can.
No, I'm sorry. You're, Vice Mayor, you're talking about bringing back this item?
Yes.
At a future date? Yes,
Yes.
it would be a future. So you have two options. If there's no motion for approval or denial, this could if there is no motion, this item would die. It could always be brought back. Or there could be a formal motion to table or to continue to a date certain.
I would recommend that we go through this process, and depending on the outcome of that mediation, I believe there will be some action items that may come out of that, and that could be put on an agenda at a later date. I'm hesitant to put a date certain because there's going to be research on the mediator that would be contracted, and then also our schedule. So, okay. With that, then, okay. So it's my understanding that there is no motion to be had on the vote of no confidence tonight. That direction has been given to explore a mediation service to help us address these underlying issues. In the case that there is action to be taken from that mediation, that would come under a separate agenda item in the future. I just want to make sure I said that okay? All right. Then with that, I believe, Mayor, is it all right if I adjourn the meeting? Okay. Then with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.